everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome back. I hope that you are all well. For today's Tag Tuesday video, I am doing the end of the year book tag. The original creator of this tag is Kier from Kier the Scrivener. And Kier is a new booktuber to me. I don't know how I've missed her because she's a fellow Canadian booktuber. I will leave a link to her video and channel below, as well as all of the prompts. She talks about some really great books in her tag, and I was tagged by Fraser from Fraser Simon's Springboard Thought. Fraser has a great channel. He's also a fellow Canadian and reads massive amounts of books, which I love. His weekly reads are the equivalent to my entire monthly wrap-ups. And he gives very thoughtful and helpful reviews of all of the books that he reads. So I will leave a link to his channel and video below as well. I realize that I'm a little late for this tag, but it's still January, so it's not too bad. And I can still reflect on my reading of last year. So let's get started. Number one is, how did you feel about this reading year? You can choose an adjective or expand. So I think I was surprised at how much I read, especially since I had an entire month of not reading while we moved. I've heard many people say that they read too much, and I am kind of leaning in that direction, but I did read a lot of great books, so I'm glad that I was able to read what I did. Number two, what are two phases or authors you went through this year? Well, if you follow my channel, one of these is obvious, Margaret Atwood. I read all of Margaret Atwood's books, except for a couple of her graphic novels. And I also really enjoyed following Canada Reads and the Giller Prize and, Canadian literature, this is not new, but it's just something that I do like to pay attention to, and I like to follow Canadian literature. So one of the phases, I guess, was branching out and paying more attention to some newer independent presses and the Republic of Consciousness books and their prize. Even though I didn't read all of them, several of them are on my TBR. Number three, what is the book you regret not reading? I can't really say that I regret it, but a book that I had hoped to read for many years now, it seems like, and I still want to read, is A Little Life. I am going to read it. I am going to read it soon. Yes, I am. Number four, what is something you learned from reading this year? Well, I loved learning more about Margaret Atwood since I read her book, all of her work, I should say, in publication order, and that has really been a neat progress. And I think that it would probably be interesting for any author, who has enough published works that you can really sink your teeth into. I also learned a lot more about Canadian literature, the history of it, and what makes Canadian literature what it is. So it's not that every book written by a Canadian is automatically Canadian literature, at least not in its truest form. So that's something that really interests me. Number five, I think we're at. What is a book you wished you talked about more? So for this, I am going to say two books because I did talk about them. I talked about both of them a few times, but I can gush about them so much. So here's the opportunity, and that is This Tender Land and Ordinary Grace by William Kent Kruger. This was my first time reading Kruger last year, and these two books just stole my heart. They were both 5-star reads for me, and they are books that I will talk about to anyone who will listen. So they were fantastic. What is a non-bookish highlight? Movies, shows, songs, podcasts. Well, most of you already know that I moved to Alberta in August, and that was crazy and exciting and wonderful. The highlight for me has been exploring and, finding some great things that Calgary has to offer. I've been to Calgary many times, but living in a place is completely different. So it's great to be able to find, new gems like bookstores and coffee shops. And I just love all of the public art in the city. So that's been a real highlight. Number 7, what is the greatest outlier in your books? So I had to really think about this, but I do have an answer. I thought of 2 things. I am going to say, here it is. I am going to say Neil Gaiman. I read Good Omens and participated in a 2-part interview with him, and I bought several of his books, so I hope to enjoy them. He writes books that, I would not normally pick up, but I am willing to kind of go outside of my comfort zone and read more. The other is graphic novels. They don't appeal to me at all. And I only read one because of the Mondays with Margaret series. Margaret Atwood has, I think, something like 3 or 4 graphic novels out. And I read War Bears for that series. So this is unlike anything else in my library. Number 8, what book are you most excited to revisit? I'm not much of a rereader. There are a few poetry collections that I would go back to. 77 Fragments of a Familiar Ruin by Thomas King. The Essential Earl Burney by Earl Burney. And I enjoyed several of Atwood's poetry collections, her most recent being Dearly. Next is, what video are you most proud of? Well, this might be cheating, but I would say that the Mondays with Margaret series, those videos aren't the most watched on my channel by any means, but it was such a great project, and it took a lot of discipline, and I learned so much by it. And maybe proud isn't the right word, but it's what I am proud to have accomplished. Let's put it that way. Number 10, what is your favorite last line of a book? So I have honestly never thought of this before. I tend to focus on first lines and first paragraphs, so I kind of like this idea. So from the books that I read last year, 2, 3 of my favorites, maybe 4 of my favorites, Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale ends with this sentence. Are there any questions? This Tender Land and Ordinary Grace, I think both ended really well, and I'm just going to look up their sentences and tell you what they are, and that's going to be my answer. Okay, here we go. This is from This Tender Land, and it ends, "Far better, I believe, to be like children and open ourselves to every beautiful possibility, for there is nothing our hearts can imagine that it is not so." And Ordinary Grace ends, Ordinary Grace, this is the final sentence, is, "They're in our hearts and in our minds, and in the end, all that separates us from them is a single breath, one final puff of air." And then finally, there's a bonus question or prompt. Is there a creator or video you'd like to shout out? Yes, there is. I want to shout out Gemma at Gem of Books, because I really enjoy her channel. She's great fun and has great energy. And specifically, I want to shout out her Best Books Awards 2021 video, which I will put the link to it in the description box below. I loved how Gemma did this video. I do a top 10 books of the year, and I always struggle with it for many reasons. One, I attempt to put them in order, which is always hard. 2, I always feel like it's not an adequate summary of my reading year. because, you know, I have eclectic tastes, you know, which brings me to number 3. I always feel like I am leaving really good books, deserving books behind. So like, what about the poetry books, or what about, you know, the 7th book in that series that I read? So I tend to gravitate towards fiction and nonfiction for the top 10. And Gemma gave her books awards. She nominated 3 books per category and then chose the winner. And I really, really, really loved this idea. And I've actually already started making plans for how I will do my end of the year video this year, inspired by Gemma. So this approach, I just think, you know, it allows me to choose how many categories, how many awards I want to give out, who is nominated, so you get to talk about, you know, more books. And I think it allows me to talk about, you know, more genres and types of books as well, and highlights really good books across, you know, the entire board, the entire spectrum. So thanks to Gemma for that. I am not going to tag anyone specifically on this, since it is now, you know, way past the end of the year. But if you haven't done this tag yet, and, you know, you would like to reflect back on last year and your reading, then please do so. You're it. I tag you. Thank you to Fraser for tagging me in this, and to Kier for creating a great tag video. I am now one of your BookTube fans. Thanks everyone for watching. I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.